All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
And so, in retrospect, that was big time serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
So this program places you in a Japanese public school, and you assist a Japanese English teacher with teaching English, and you're an ambassador for the United States.
Okay.
So it was this really rich experience, great program. And one day, can I tell another story?
Please. Yes.
So this is the origin story. This is the
Okay.
answer to your question.
Okay.
About a year in, I got a call that my friend Alex was found stumbling and muttering outside of his apartment in a stairwell, incoherently. And that he had been moved to kind of this hospital. And so I ended up going to the hospital, and the Japanese doctors removed his appendix because at one point in his incoherence, he had complained of lower abdominal pain. Well, he did not have an appendicitis. There was not an issue there. But by the time that I got to the hospital, he was coming out from being under anesthesia, recognizing that a part of his body had been taken from him. And and at that time he was in like a full psychotic episode, really paranoid, really concerned, incredible distress.
Yeah.
And a group of us, and so the JET program is, they recruit from English speaking countries. So you have people from England, Australia, New Zealand, and we were standing vigil because Alex didn't speak much Japanese, and he just needed somebody there. Well, there was a decision made to move him to the nearest mental facility, kind of a psychiatric facility, which happened to be in the town where I lived. We knew that Alex could not go into that facility alone, and so I volunteered to go with him. And so calling it a psychiatric facility is putting it really nicely. It was really actually like an insane asylum from the 1920s in America.
Okay.
So they were doing electroconvulsive shock therapy. So there were a bunch of guys that had the sides of their head shaved. They were handing out Halidol like it was candy, which is like this old school tranquilizer that makes you drool.
Yep.
And when I look back on this, I'm amazed that they let me go in, but I also don't think that the Japanese folks wanted him without someone to calm him down.
Yeah.
So Alex and I get put in this room. They lock us in this room, and he was just hallucinating. And he would be spitting out word salad. And so it looked a little like this: BVD, air gauge, descending, bubbles, fish, shark, danger, shark. And so he would be hallucinating that he's like experiencing this attack. And so I did everything that I could to get through to him, but he could not really respond to me when I talked to him. And when I touched him, it upset him. And then I remembered, like 3-4 hours into being locked in this room, that Alex and I have this really dorky thing in common. We both love old school rap.
Okay.
And so I looked at him and I said, basketball is my favorite sport. And he looked back at me and he said, I like the way they dribble up and down the court. And I said, just like I'm the king on the microphone. And then he says, so is Dr. J and Moses Malone. And so we go back and forth with
Yeah.
Curtis Blows basketball. And it was miraculous because he was cogent and he
Hmm.
could talk to me.
Wow.
We were able to have a conversation. And then, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, he starts drifting away
Mm.
into delusion land. And so then I open up the Run DMC canon and we busted through Run DMC. And so you guys, we rapped and we talked for 3 straight days,
Wow.
and so his parents showed up and I knew they were coming, but I didn't have a cell phone. I had no way of
Mm.
knowing when. And it turned out that his dad was one of the foremost psychiatrists in Canada.
Mm.
And he had like a form of meningitis that
Okay.
had caused this. And so his dad got him treatment right away. He returned to Canada. But I left that experience kind of realizing that this is what I want to do with my life, is that
Yeah.
I want to have conversations with people that are in dark, confused places and help them see through the fog and the smoke
Yeah.
and find their way to clarity.
Wow.
And I knew that I wanted to work in a school.
Hmm.
I knew that that schedule would be good for a family, which is something I wanted in the future. And so it was through that process of elimination and that really kind of, I don't know, less than great circumstance that I realized what I wanted to do with my life.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that experience for him could have looked so different, right? I mean, the
Absolutely.
reality is meningitis. He left without his appendix and almost admitted to an insane asylum.
Yeah.
Uh, right. I mean, and it
Yeah.
and the solution was actually over here, right? And they were
Mhm.
treating him for everything else except what the actual problem was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so and the story ends well for Alex. He returned to Canada, went to teachers college. He married this amazing
Oh,
woman,
wow.
you know,
I
Yeah.
love that.
and he's lived a very fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Right.
Could have been
He
very different.
he
Yeah.
attended my wedding the following year.
I love
So
that.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Well, and thank you for sharing kind of that
Mhm.
starting point for
Yeah.
like recognizing and realizing your purpose, because the amount of courage, right? You're in a different country. Not only are you dealing with the language barrier between patient and the provider, care providers, being the interpreter, but also stepping into a space that you were not familiar with. I mean, you just knew that there was something that would connect the two of you. Tap into that and stay there, and that's it.
Mhm.
that was that. Well, and it's also like necessity or desperation is the mother of invention
Mhm. Yeah.
in this case. And I didn't know it would work. And to this day, I still don't know why.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know why old school rhymes
Hmm.
were able to, I was able to get through to Alex that way. But I think so many times in life, it is exactly, the moments of desperation that represent the greatest opportunity
Yeah.
for realization, which
Yeah.
is why I love your podcast so much.
Yeah.
It's such, there's this really profound truth in that, I think.
Hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
have to agree. I mean, the stories along the way are one part of it, but the triumph and the victory and the lessons learned on the other side are the pieces that always keep me in awe.
Yeah.
Because it is, we get to hear the stories on the other side, with
Hmm.
that 2020 hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How long did you stay in Japan? How long were you in did you get married in Japan? Because you got married the year later.
We got married back in the US. And
Okay.
so we were in Japan from 2000 to 2002,
Okay.
returned to Colorado, got married, and then enrolled in grad school.
Okay.
And so I started my career, I don't know, 2006, 2007. And
Okay.
then we returned to Japan with with a 5-month old and a 3-year old. And then we worked at international schools there.
Okay. And counseling, or kind of the same thing that you were doing when you were there before?
I was a college counselor.
Okay.
And then my wife is also a high school counselor. And so I worked at an all boys school. She worked at an all girls school. And we lived in central Tokyo. And it was, yeah, it was like a great adventure.
Absolutely. You have had a lot of great adventures. I read
Well,
about everything you've
I appreciate that, Pamela. Right now, I feel like sometimes just getting out of Costco with my skin is an adventure, you know?
done.
That just stands in a whole category by itself. You can't
It
compare
does.
anything else to
You know,
that.
you find yourself at Costco on a Sunday and it's like, this is nuts.
I
Exactly.
did. I made a Costco run last Sunday because my workout got canceled because the instructor was sick. So I'm like, well, I might as well go to Costco. It'll be a workout, and it was. It was terrifying. I
It's
was like,
terrifying.
why do you do this?
Yes.
True.
The last
Okay.
time I found myself in that space on a Sunday, I remember stopping in the store, middle of the store, stop the basket, and I'm by myself. And I said, why would I have done this to
Why would
myself?
you do this? Like, why? I ask that every time I get there, and I'm parking in the next county. I'm like,
Yes.
why would I do this? They need shuttles to get us to the.
It's like childbirth. You forget how terrible it
You
is.
do,
And
and
you
then you
do it
try.
again, and it's
And then
like,
you do it again.
And I've tried like every like rhythm, like go earlier, go middle of the day, go out. It doesn't matter. It
Go
doesn't
against traffic. Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It doesn't
matter.
matter. Okay, so you both so you're both grad school. You're back in the you go to Japan again with two littles, come
Yeah.
back to the States.
yes.
And so kind of fast forward. So what is your journey now? Because now you're speaking,
Yeah.
and so you're a public speaker, and so you're sharing stories. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
So we returned to the States and uh, returned to working in comprehensive high schools.
Mhm.
Um, at that time, Ben was 2 and Noah was 8. No, that's not right. Ben was 2, Noah was 5. And so returned to working in schools. I love being a school counselor. And a few years later, we are up at Hanging Lake
Mhm.
outside of Glenwood Springs. We go on a family hike. It's a place we've been many times before. It's a place I grew up hiking to with my family. And uh, my son Noah, who was 8 at the time, ran ahead on the trail, and a rock dislodged from a rock face hit him on the head and killed him instantly. And so that was, as you can imagine, it was
Yeah.
it really it was like a profound tragedy for us.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing about that is that it caused us to really reassess everything in our lives,
Mhm.
and when you're living in a space that is kind of so precarious, and I mean this kind of emotionally, psychologically, you're really careful about everything that you do, and there were certain TV shows I couldn't watch. I couldn't we had to be really careful. The statistics for couples who lose a child staying married are not good,
Yeah.
you know. And but my wife is a school counselor and a licensed therapist, and so am I. And so we went and we got help, and
Mhm.
we got a lot of help, and it was this healing journey that was really intensive and intentional. And what came out of that for me, um, personally, was a recognition that I needed to I needed to not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And so from a personal lens, one of the really interesting things that happened, and I don't think most people would expect this or maybe even experience it, is that I had literally almost no anxiety for about the first year after Noah died,
Mhm.
because I believed that the worst thing that could happen had happened.
had already
Yeah.
happened.
And I
Yeah.
thought the chances of that repeating
Mhm.
were not likely. Professionally, I decided that I wanted to have a bigger systemic impact in the work that I did. And so serendipitously, this job opened up leading the school counselors in Douglas County.
Mhm.
Um, I got that job. It was really my first go at leadership. About a month in, they told me that we're going to have a mill levy override. This is like where you go to the voters
Mhm.
and the schools basically say, hey, if you give us this money, this is what we're going to do with it. And what they decided they were going to do with it was hire 85 new counselors,
Wow.
almost double the size of the counseling corps in Douglas County,
Mhm.
put elementary counselors in all the buildings, and then lower or increase the number of counselors in the middle and the high schools. And so they basically said to me, look, you will be solely responsible for recruiting, screening, and creating processes so we can hire en masse all these people. I have no HR background and I
A
haven't done
lot.
any of this stuff before, but
Mhm.
I felt like one of the decisions that I'd made was to devote my work to Noah's memory.
Mhm.
And so I felt incredibly motivated and inspired. And I felt like Noah was with me on this journey. And so one of the things I did is I went to our kind of our communications department. There's like a really skilled videographer. I put together a recruitment video.
Mhm.
That recruitment video went viral.
Wow.
There were not enough people graduating that year from grad school to staff all those positions.
Mhm.
And I was told there's no way that you're going to be able to do this. Um, but
Mhm.
not only did we do it, we got some incredible people. And then
Amazing.
I got the opportunity to train them and I got the opportunity to get to know them and uh, orient them. And it resulted in a really great 4-year run in that position where we implemented anxiety work
Mm.
uh, that doesn't exist anywhere else in the country,
Amazing.
created some programs for counseling, professional development that was really amazing. It was yeah, it really felt, yeah, it felt amazing. And DU approached me and they're like, hey, we've heard of you. Will you teach for us?
Mm.
It's a strange thing to have people come to you and say, we want you
Mhm.
to do this thing for us. So it was yeah, it was kind of this illuminating experience. And I think uh when you go through a tragedy like that, you have to make really, really clear decisions about who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I think when I look back on it, I think my son Ben saved my life
Mhm.
because I knew that I had to be whole for him,
Yeah.
that I owed him a childhood,
Mhm.
that I owed him opportunities. And so, you know, it was yeah, that's a little bit
Yeah.
about the about that experience when we got back from Japan, Pamela.
Wow. That was quite an experience.
Yeah,
Quite a
absolutely.
journey. Mm.
Well, and
And
Aaron, I'm not surprised that people reach out to you or recognize the work that you're doing because you've done a couple of things. Like you realized, unfortunately, out of tragedy, what your why and your true north was going to be moving forward. And you were doing work that was really in alignment with your purpose and what you truly wanted to do. Yes, you could have worked with the children one-on-one, but then you had the ability to work with 100+ counselors and having this expansive reach across the entire school district, and creating innovative tools and modalities for all of those counselors to utilize with kids, which is huge. I mean, that's
Mhm.
it's significant.
Yeah.
yeah, it really felt, um, sometimes in life it's better to be lucky than smart.
Mm.
you know,
Agree.
and
Yes.
so I feel, I found myself at this intersection
Yeah.
of opportunity, and passion. And so that, that was a really notable 4 years. I
Mm-hmm.
will say this though, I bit off a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I ran hard and it was just a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing that happened uh, in the aftermath of Noah's death was my wife and I had a conversation about having another child.
Mm.
And uh, we wanted Ben to have a brother because he loved being a brother. And
Yeah.
we just didn't feel like our family was complete. And so
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of conversations about it, and then we entered into this long IVF journey, and we were really ready to give up because there were so many false starts, and then COVID hit, and then there were delays, and then so we hit this point where my wife Lisa says, like, look, I'm happy to give up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to give up the ghost. And when we started this journey, I had said I was kind of the reluctant one.
Yeah.
But at this point, I was really clear that by God, we're not going to just give up. We've invested lots, lots in this, and I'm not just talking money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's give it a go.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so Lisa got pregnant,
Mm.
and the pregnancy went beautifully. And then at 20 weeks, they bring you in to do an ultrasound,
Mm.
you know, and when you're what they call geriatric, like we are,
Yes.
they hook you up to an ultrasound machine on steroids, and the doctor does his thing, and then he says to us, "There's a problem.
Mm.
There's like a 2 centimeter break in the uterus."
Mm.
And I kind but he basically said, like, look, there's nothing that we can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could result in an early delivery.
Mm.
It could result, everything might be fine, but probably not, or it could be fatal.
Mm.
He's basically like, there's nothing we can do about it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
He said basically.
Yeah.
And so we left this experience and this appointment, and I felt like my world had been flipped upside down, and I knew this was high risk. And I had told myself that I was going to practice radical acceptance,
Wow.
but in practice, that's really hard to do.
Yes.
It's really hard to do. And in the backdrop, professionally, this thing had happened where there had been a new school board elected, and they fired the superintendent.
Mm.
And I thought I was low enough on the food chain that it wasn't going to affect me. But then it became very clear to me that I would no longer be able to serve Noah's memory with fidelity if I
Mm.
stayed.
Mm.
So I have this thing going on with this baby.
Mm-hmm.
Things are falling apart in my career. And I knew that I might need to make a change anyway because it's not really viable to work 60 hours a week
Right.
when you have a newborn.
Yeah.
So I apply for this job that I heard about in a neighboring school district, and they call me for an interview, but the interview happens to be at the exact same moment as our follow-up appointment with the OB.
Of course. Of
You know
course.
what?
Yes.
Right?
Of course.
So Lisa and I, we do the pragmatic thing, and I go to the interview, and we agree that I will call her the second it's over.
Yes.
So I go to this interview, call her when I get out, and I say, well, what happened? And she says, well, it was weird. The ultrasound tech came in, took a bunch of pictures. She said, I believe the doctor was watching remotely. He rushed in after the ultrasound tech, grabbed the wand, put the goo on my belly, and he starts like looking around, and he seems dysregulated. He seems off. He hasn't acknowledged me. He is simply
Yeah.
doing the thing with the wand.
Yeah.
And this continues for a couple of minutes. And Lisa's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Huh? What? And she says, "Excuse me, doctor, is everything okay?" And he kind of comes out of a stupor and he looks at her and he says, "Do you remember that problem from a month ago?"
Mhm.
And Lisa's like, "Yeah, I'll never forget it."
Right.
Mhm.
And he says, "Well, it's gone. It has healed itself. The tissue has regenerated. There is no longer a break." And he said, "There is nothing in the medical literature to indicate that this is possible. I've never even heard of this happening."
Wow.
But he said, "This is the best possible thing that could happen.
Mhm.
If it weren't for your age, I would consider you not even at risk." And so uh, our son Liam was born about 2.5 years ago. It's a
Mm.
beautiful baby boy. Ben's this incredible big brother. He is so good with him.
Oh,
And so, yeah. And I got that job, and the job that I have now. And it allowed me to work directly with kids again. There was a significant raise. I get to work with vulnerable populations,
Mhm.
which is my passion. And it was kind of like all our problems were solved at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
oh my gosh. That's quite the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so much more. This is not the end.
Yeah,
So
not the end. You're
now
just
it's what else is
beginning.
on the
It's not the end.
horizon?
It's
Yeah, you're just getting started.
not by a long shot. Not
Not
by a
at
long shot.
all. Yes, exactly. Well, Aaron, you have an opportunity to work with young people, and just from what I've witnessed and experienced, young people kind of go through challenges and adversities parallel with adults and mature adults. For our listeners, if they're finding themselves in a place where they're overcoming an obstacle or a hurdle or a challenge in life, what advice or tips would you give our listeners just to help them at least start to navigate through or process what they're going through?
I think for anybody that has a relationship with a young person, the first piece of advice I would have would be to turn off all the electronics and all the screens and put them away and take a moment,
Mm.
even 5 moments, and just really listen to them and be fully present for them.
Mm.
Because my experience has been that in this time of constant partial attention,
Yeah.
the greatest gift you can give
Yeah.
anyone is your full attention.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds really basic,
But it's
but
huge.
it models something for young people that they desperately need,
Mhm.
and it provides something that will nourish their soul.
Mm.
I
And
love it.
so I think that advice would hold true regardless of if we're talking about a difficulty or not.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it will build the foundation for future conversation that could potentially save their life.
I love that. I think that's
It just
beautiful.
creates that space for connection,
Yeah.
true
Absolutely.
connection.
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And again, I know that's so basic,
But I
but
think it's something that would benefit everybody at any age with any other human.
yes, yeah.
Beautiful.
I love that. That's fabulous. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners that we didn't get a chance to talk about today, Aaron?
I can't believe how much we talked
I
about.
know. I think we unpacked
Did
so
we?
much, and I'm so
We've gone
grateful.
to
No,
multiple countries,
Yes.
multiple continents.
no, I just I so appreciate being invited here. It's a real honor, and I just want to say thank you. And to your listeners out there, um, hang in there. We are living in a very uncertain time,
Yeah,
but hang in there because it's going to be okay. Like one way or another,
it will be okay.
the system wants to return to equilibrium.
Yeah.
That is a fundamental tenet of family counseling theory. I believe it's true. And I
Mhm.
think that we're going to get back to equilibrium. So
I love that.
That's a
And that's the
beautiful
system
way.
collectively and all of the components of the system.
the
Mhm.
system does
Yeah.
not like to be out of balance.
Yeah.
So
Oh, love that.
Beautiful.
Love that. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Aaron. This has
So
been
grateful.
Yes.
The
Thank
best
you
way
for
to end a week.
exactly. That's exactly right. Yes.
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. And yeah. I hope, Natalie, I hope we get to meet sometime in person. And Pamela, I look forward to seeing you in like a week or two, whenever that is.
I would love that. Well, we at least have a running start. We're all in the same state. Now,
Yes.
what
Yes.
comes from that, we'll see.
I know we've talked about doing some sort of a reunion retreat or something where we invite all of the guests that we've had to come together, which would be one day. We're going to do it.
We'll make it happen.
That sounds like a blast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Aaron, thank you again. We are so grateful for having you on today. And best of luck with the speaking career and profession that you're building as you continue to share your message with a different vehicle. And thank you for the work that you're doing with young people. And to Lisa, Ben, and Liam, I'm grateful for them as well because
oh my gosh.
that's again, it's just the dynamic that I think brings forth just all of the value that you have provided with us today. So thank you.
Thank you.
For our listeners, if you all are interested in knowing what's going on in the world of Reignite Resilience, head on over to reigniteresilience.com where you can check us out or on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have not already done so, I know I'm a broken record in saying it, make sure you subscribe to our weekly Think Letter. It is released every Saturday where you can hear more about our episodes, our guests, and our thoughts about our episodes as we have our guests on. So until next time, we'll see you all soon. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.